Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Streamline Solopreneur. I'm your host, Joe Casabona, and I am here in real life with Charlotte Crowther. And so you make signature frameworks for people. We're going to really get into this, but in doing kind of research on your background, like you had some stops along the way before you got to signature framework.
Gosh. Well, first of all, hi.
Yes, hi. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited that we're doing this.
Yeah, likewise.
And that we're able to do it in person while we're here in Boise together. Yeah. So the answer is, I would say no. I never would have imagined that I'm doing what I'm doing now. I love it. It's the best thing ever. Yeah. I'm so glad. And if I reflect back on my journey to date, it's kind of actually the most obvious thing. But it's one of those things like, you don't know what you're doing. You keep going, you trust, you figure it out. And it's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, it's such. I feel like that's it's been a recurring theme here at. So again, if you're watching the video, you'll know this, that Charlotte and I are here in the Kit Studios in Boise. We are very lucky to be using Nathan's studio, the Alchemy.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Nathan. Very nice. So shout out to Kit, shout out to Craft and Commerce. It's been an amazing week, but yeah, I think that's been like a common thread. It's like you don't necessarily need to know everything at the start. Tiny experiments has been a common saying this week, and Pat Flynn talked about lean learning and being an expert in one thing. So I've learned a lot this week, and it sounds like everything that you've learned led you to this point.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, actually, I was just chatting with Nick Milo just before I came up to the studios, and he was like, so how's it been? Like, you come all the way from London, UK to come, like, what have you got out of it? And I was like, do you know what? I've never been somewhere with such a high concentration of people who have just like gone for it, and had the courage to kind of take it a step at a time and like figure it out and be okay with uncertainty and sort of work and figure out in a sort of a creative way and build their businesses. Some are more traditional businesses that have a big like sort of social media marketing, YouTube newsletter, blogging sort of arm. And then, some are more like, I'm an artist and I'm like creating a course and sharing about it online. Like you kind of got, a range of sort of educators and then sort of creators who kind of build their business online. And I think it's what I really appreciate is that it takes a certain kind of vulnerability and courage. I feel like that's a real like shared feeling here, and everyone's just so open and welcoming. It's like just so nice to share that with someone else and see how that pops up in their life and like their color and flavor.
Yeah, it's like an instant camaraderie, right? I mean, like somebody asked me, maybe it was you, like somebody asked me recently, like why I smoke cigars, and like that's part of it. Is like you're immediately brought together by this like this commonality, and like being a creator and like all getting together because we mostly work online is
and in our like home office,
right? Yeah,
with a bit of co-working sometimes mixed in
with people in our lives who like barely understand what we do,
right?
And the people that I met here the first time I came, I consider really good friends and like instant friends. And I think again because of that, because there's like a strong community and camaraderie here, like we're all, you go to conferences and it's like, what do you do? Here's my business card. Hire me. Like there's none of that like overly salesy smarm,
right?
Which just makes this such an amazing conference.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've gushed about Kit and Craft and Commerce, I'll have a link it'll be an affiliate link, but it'll be a link in the show notes for Kit because I love it. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. You are a signature framework consultant. Let's start even without signature. What is a framework?
Yeah. So a framework is a diagram that gives structure to knowledge. Yeah. And because a visual structure, right. And because of that, you're able to just sort of read the diagram and use both our verbal and visual way of taking information through our brain to make sense of something. And because we're not only using words, we're using our visual spatial capacity, the speed at which we understand a concept is much, much faster. So we are leveraging the way our mind works more effectively.
Yeah.
And we are able to communicate more deeply a particular concept.
Yeah. That is, I mean, easily the best definition of framework I've ever heard, right? And it makes sense. And, you know, when I was a computer science major, we always talked about how words were imprecise. Like, that's why we like math, right?
I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So like, when you try to describe something without the visuals, it could be really hard for someone to truly understand what you're trying to communicate. And something that I always incorrectly thought about frameworks is that it was more like a blueprint. Like, oh, my framework is step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do this. But that's not really the case, right? Or it doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
Yeah, I think frameworks have got a bit of a bad rep because I would say marketers, as much as I love you guys, have kind of
co-opted,
bastardized frameworks.
Yeah.
You know, to like 3 steps or an acronym and it's like overly simplified and it's not really it is a framework of sorts.
Right.
But I think a successful framework has a visual component. So you can take advantage of that. Dual coding is the sort of terminology for how we kind of code information in these 2 ways.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it's not about just using a visual framework.
Right.
It's paired with text, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not here like, you know, sort of on my high horse being like, only use frameworks. No. It's just most people only use text.
Right.
So I'm saying create a framework and in complement with, you know, appropriate text, communicate your best ideas.
Right. Yeah. And the framework is like, it's both. It gives you the language to use and the visual to assist it with, right? Because like I could tell you how I automate my processes, but like how I do something is not necessarily a framework. I need to take that and maybe generalize it a little more. Is that?
Yeah, it's interesting. That can be something else. Let's clear that up. So there are different kinds of frameworks because there are different kinds of needs and use cases. Yeah. So, you know, some are more simple and diagrammatic or like a table. That's it's a framework of sorts. Yeah. And these frameworks are sort of, I call sort of the tertiary level frameworks where you're kind of on the ground using them to complete, you know, an automation process that you're using in Make and Zapier and Kit and your email. And so you just need a very simple visual that you can just follow almost like an IKEA step by step.
Right.
And that, it might not seem like the grandeur of like some big methodology framework. Yeah. But it is a framework. It's a tertiary framework. Okay. It's so practical. It's almost a diagram.
Right. Yeah.
But if it is within your framework ecosystem, your body of knowledge, and because I work with signature frameworks, we can speak a bit more about what that is. Yeah. But you can bring in like a visual identity to it. Okay. So you know it's part of the system and it's not as sexy as some like big concept, but it is an important part. It's the doing of the thing. Right. And having a visual to accompany your learning and application of how to execute X as part of like your welcome sequence, right, as part of your customer relationship strategy, which is sitting in that bigger level. Yeah. You know, you kind of come down at this tertiary level, but it's still part of the same ecosystem of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not to be disregarded. Like we need to actually do the thing, you know, at the same time. So that's what I call like a tertiary level framework. Okay. A secondary level, if we take the welcome sequence analogy, is like, okay, you know, you want to have 8 emails And in the first email, you're saying X. Second email, you're saying Y. And there is a structure, right?
Yeah.
So that would be like your welcome email sequence. And then that primary framework could be like, how do you win the hearts and minds of your new email subscribers?
Gotcha.
And that's the framework for that email consultant, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you sort of zoom in and zoom out of the different levels.
Yeah. Gotcha. Love that. Okay. Well, so you mentioned tertiary, secondary. Is the primary framework like the signature framework? Is there a primary framework?
Yeah. So signature framework is kind of speaking to your premise as a coach, consultant, author, expert, however you sort of name yourself as a professional. And you have a particular premise, perspective, approach, point of view on how to do X. And so you are communicating that efficiently through a primary framework. And you're actually sort of at a primary level. As I've worked on this more, I'm kind of actually finding that you have visuals to even, so predominantly you would have a primary framework that shows your methodology of how to like achieve X. But more and more I'm creating visuals to show the premise of like why you should engage in doing the methodologies. And that will have, sometimes it's the same visual as the methodology framework. Sometimes it's the same visual language, but it's a separate diagram because it's a separate sort of concept to communicate. So I've kind of been developing that more actually with experts that I work with. So you develop at a primary level of communication, like that headline level, kind of key concepts. And that might be your premise, it might be your methodology, it might be about you and who you are. And that's important because that relays kind of what you're about in your message. And the secondary level is like, you just don't need to know that top line information. But when you do double click, it's right there. And it's part of this whole knowledge base, this whole knowledge ecosystem, which nests inside each other. And it's just like, it flows and it makes sense. And it's been all through end to end.
Gotcha. So it sounds like a tertiary framework would almost be like how to automate a process, right? Like you take the trigger, there's a condition, there's the action, right?
Exactly.
The secondary framework would be how to build your system around automations. And, so it's not just like one specific automation. It's almost like, here's your system for running your business and kind of why you would want that. So it's like you need to consider automations, you need to consider delegation, you need to consider the things that you're not doing at all. Is that kind of...
So what you described there was set at the primary level because you're explaining at a high level view, delegation, system automation. So then the secondary framework of that is like, how do you actually achieve delegating successfully? How do you actually set up your system? That's the secondary level.
Cool. Great. That really like solidifies it in my mind. So this is awesome.
Great.
So, would you say we've defined signature framework? Is there like you have a...
So what makes a framework signature is the visual design of that framework image. Visual.
Yeah.
A lot of, anything you draw is made up of a circle, a triangle, a square, a line of some sort. Right. But it's a way in which you compose that is very signature and unique to you. Yeah. We can share examples like in the swipe file I'll be sharing. Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes as well. We can put some in the show notes
as well. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on top of like that visual being very distinctive, the branding of the visual is correlated to the organization or the individual whose expertise is being showcased in the framework. And so it becomes a signature framework. It's like unique to you.
Right.
And more specifically as well, it's proprietary. Not just because of the thinking behind it and what's represented in the visual, but because it has that branding visual element to that distinctive visual. It's totally proprietary and part of your intellectual property, and what you would protect as well and get trademarked.
Yeah, that's a really key point, I think. Not the get the trademark, definitely get the trademark, but like anybody could say you need to automate and delegate, right? Everybody who's in the system space says, "Oh, I save you time," right? Like that's like sure. Every business boils down to saving you time or money, right? And so having that visual component, right? You mentioned lines, so like Holly Arnett did my branding, which again I'll link this in the show notes, but like she created this like distinct system of these wavy, not really straight lines, but there's space between, and a streamlined business is a spacious business is part of my brand. And so some of these elements would likely go into my signature framework.
Exactly. Especially as I love Holly, she's great. And so she's done that work, but we would build off of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if I mean, it's totally fine, but actually, the more I work on this, the more I would encourage a company to define their intellectual property first and create a visual language around it.
Yeah.
And that then informs their brand. So if you think about it, you're like, when you're developing a brand, you're like thinking about what is your message? What is it that you do?
Right.
So to like double click on that and get it really clear and create the visual around it. And then you build the brand around that.
Yeah.
Or you do both in tandem, but they inform each other,
Right.
is like super powerful.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. Okay, so let's get into the concrete. What's like one of your favorite frameworks that you've developed, signature frameworks that you've developed recently?
Well, we've got to talk about Justin.
We do have to talk about Justin. Yes.
It would be criminal. I think he would actually shoot us if we didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I think everyone knows you work with Justin, right?
Yeah.
It's like a known thing.
Yeah. So, longtime listeners will know I did sponsorship coaching on my own, and then I worked with Justin, and he made me a better sponsorship getter. And I felt really weird, like teaching his stuff to my clients. So he brought me on, and now I work very closely with him there. And so, he has a whole framework around.
Right, let's get it.
Yeah.
So this is his recent new book, Sponsor Magnet.
Sponsormagnet.com.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And this, is his framework that I helped develop 2023.
Yeah.
And he's used this in his courses. In his knowledge base, in his now book, in his marketing sales. I mean,
it informs everything we do.
Right. And in his events, right. Yeah. And it's like, how do you say it? It was like, it's the blood running through the veins of my business. Like he has been as bold to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell you, so Charlotte and I met this week as we record this, and she's talking about this. I had no idea that you developed the framework. I'm like, oh wow, Justin, like this is a really good thing that Justin came up with. Because it really is. It affects like the chapters in his book are it's called the sponsor wheel. Yeah. It's 8 segments of a wheel, all like every stage of doing a brand deal. And it was like it informed the games at sponsor games. It informs his content. I'm like vibe coding these tools for like people to practice each stage of the wheel. So like it's really, like he said, it's the blood running through the veins of his business. It's permeated every aspect of his business.
Justin is a smart dude, and what I really like about him is, of course, he helps people make money, which helps them create the lives they want. But ultimately, it's about impact for him, which I love how that's like, it's so easy, especially with money and sponsorships, to get busy with that. And he's like, yeah, all of that, but it's like it's about impact, right? And he knows to be impactful, you need to make it easy, clear, and simple for people. And you need to repeat. That's how we learn. That's how we remember. Yeah. So sure, he's building a brand for himself. He's the go-to person for sponsorship coaching. And he does it for all those reasons, but he does it ultimately to help his people. Yeah. And it's like, you can never have enough for showing his will and keep talking about his will and using it. Like one of the favorite use cases is that he's like made this wheel. He's at a conference and he's like, spin the wheel, the sponsorship wheel. And then they spin it and it has a question, which then creates a prompt that he has. And he's interviewing them on that question, like as creative and as fun as that. And what a great way to sort of get to know people. But, he's just really using it and sharing it. And I just love how he gets it and he's really using it from that place of impact. Because that's what it's about. And ultimately it's a knowledge organizer. So his YouTube channel has like sections based on the 8 steps.
And so I want to really speak to this, right? Because like something that I don't have a signature framework yet. But like when I'm trying to figure out what kind of content to do for my YouTube channel, it's like kind of what I'm thinking about that day, right? Or like last year I wrote, I could have the GAPS framework. So I talk about gear, automation, processes, and systems. And I'm like, what's the difference between automations, processes, and systems? I really need to define that. And do I want to talk about gear? And so like you're with the sponsor wheel, like all of his content falls into a very nice bucket. And it's all based on this signature framework. And that reduces cognitive load and helps him produce the sheer amount of content he produces.
Yeah. So my first career was as a professional artist. And I know people think like if you're an artist, like you're some sort of mad hatter, right? You're like super crazy and you're creating this, creating that.
You look like Professor Trelawney or whatever, right?
Right.
Like,
and everything's like everywhere. And I mean, I have that side to me. But something I already like figured out was if in my studio, I put all my brushes in one place and all my paints in another, and I kind of created these simple systems, I would have more time to paint.
Right.
And it would create more space to be creative. Yeah. And like since then I've just grown in nerdiness in terms of systems and stuff to like levels that, are pretty quirky, let's say.
I mean, the people who listen to the show listen to me talk every week. So like we're in good company. We're in great company.
Glad to hear. We'll have this like swap some pictures and stuff and chat shop about that. But it's exactly that is when it comes to sort of content, right? You're spending time like figuring this and figuring that. But if you stopped and paused and took some time to just think deeply about what you do, connect those dots, clarify those things, put things into order and structure, it's basically like an SOP for your IP, really.
Yeah. Love that.
You, like anything, when you bring an SOP to it, you standardize, you enable people to come in, like how you can come in and be like, okay, I'm going to, create a game around this so people can practice how to pitch, right? Like, it doesn't depend on Justin anymore. He doesn't have to explain it. He has a system that he can train his team around and they can get creative about it because there's a structure and there's a solid, reliable structure. And something like I recorded with Justin earlier this week and he was like, Charlotte, it works. And I can shout loud and far about it because I know it works and it really helps people. Like it's actually like, it works, use it. Like it's really coming from that place. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I've got this system, like I'm impressive, follow me, Right. It's like, no, this actually works and helps.
Yeah. It's not just a buzzword.
Yeah, it's not some marketing thing, gimmick, which is like, follow the ASET system. Like, it's like legit. And so I think it kind of gives you that confidence as well. Yeah. And because you have that clarity and that structure and you double click, you actually get deeper into it, to like, ooh, we could practice the pitching in this way. We're going to do a challenge in this way, right? We need to talk about it in this way. Yeah. We're actually talking to him about the moment about sort of creating some foundational videos for his YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And again, like, we'll come back to those 8 steps and build off there. We're not reinventing the wheel again. Right.
Pun intended, no pun intended there.
There we go. and it's a whole different ballgame. And as you say, that's also what helps him be prolific, accelerate his competitive advantage. Yeah. It's so powerful. Yeah.
I mean, one more thing before we move on from Justin, as sad as that will make him, is, he gave a workshop at Craft and Commerce and I had vibe coded these things for his podcast, right? I'm like a guest co-host, I guess. And he texted me, he's like, I'm just gonna throw out my slides and use these things. And the workshop was so much because it went from him talking at people and saying like, here's why you need to negotiate or whatever, to like, hey, let's actually take steps 1 and 2 of the sponsor wheel and actually do some real tangible, never before seen examples and then critique how you did. And it was, I mean, he went over time, and it's one of the most talked about workshops I've heard from this week.
So yeah, great.
Yeah. So
love it.
So I think you've maybe touched on this a bit, but what are some of the hidden costs of not having a signature framework? I think like,
well, we just spoke about one of them, like reinventing the wheel each and every time.
Yeah.
It's the difficulty, the struggle to explain what you do.
Which lots of people do, right? I mean, like the first talk at Craft and Commerce was about that. And it's like, oh, well, I do this and I do this and like I kind of do this. And a signature framework gives you the language to not do that.
And show what you do.
And show.
And take advantage of the dual coding.
Yeah.
And be memorable in someone else's mind.
Yeah.
It's something more tangible that your clients can speak to and share with their people and recommend you.
Yeah. Yes. So this is actually on LinkedIn. You said signature framework shift you from trust me, I'm good to here's precisely how I create success. I want to talk about that a little more because I feel like this is something that solopreneurs really struggle with. And maybe this is just because I come from the programming space and we're very concrete. It's like I build you a website, right? But that's okay. So does Squarespace. So does AI, right? Like why would I hire you to build a website? Or I help build you automations. What are automations is usually the first question I get when that was the thing I said I do. So I want to talk about this a little bit because like, trust me, I'm good is how I've lived my whole life.
Is it?
Yeah. It's
okay.
Just like,
did that hit a chord?
Yeah. It's just very like, if you build it, they will come. And I'm like, well, I built these great things. And when people see them, they'll intuitively know they need them and hire me. And that happens sometimes, but it's definitely not a way to grow a business or a mailing list.
Well, you know, it's the benefits are internal and external. One, if we start with the internal, it's like you clarify your own thinking, which means, you know, you're not like reinventing every time.
Right.
And you create a standard for yourself and you can iterate and build on it, but you have a baseline that's documented that you can improve upon. But two, in terms of like the client experience, you know, you could share them. This is what we're going to go through. And if you make it visual, they're going to more likely engage with it than a block of text.
Right.
It helps set expectations. It brings clarity to the conversation. If there's any assumptions from the outset, they can be managed. Yeah. It brings structure to the website service experience, especially when things are a bit more intangible. It's professional. It's clear. And you're more likely to get better results because of the structure that you've created for you and your client.
Yeah, I mean, when I tell people, you know, how to figure out what to automate, are the inputs clear and are the outputs clear? It's almost the same thing, right? It's like, are you clear on what you need for success? And then is the success metric obvious?
Right. And as you get clear on that, you design backwards to enable that to happen, right? So there's like these deeper things that of like chains of thought, chains of action that happen for you, but also for your client. Like if your client knows the structure of your service, they can prepare for it.
Right.
And feel excited for collating their testimonials so that when you create the website, they're all organized and you can just go, thanks for that Google Doc and Google Drive with the photos of, you know, your clients in. Yeah. Boom. Yeah. Right. And you can anticipate asking them to prepare that before they start working with you. Right. And everyone's happier, right? You're not like delayed in your process, they feel like they can prepare and get the most out of it and spend the time that they do have with you on higher leverage things than like, oh shoot, I need to go and collect those testimonials, and and then they're sort of running around for a week.
Gotta find pictures, right? And because that's busy solopreneur parents have a lot of cognitive load, right? When I'm on a call, it's likely that my kids are upstairs or sometimes in my office, right? And when I'm cognitively distracted by my kids, I have a very hard time articulating on a discovery call my exact value because I have to reinvent the wheel. I have to think about the words again. And I'm getting better at that, but I can just imagine a lot of my potential clients are parents as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably thinking the same thing on the other side of the camera. What do I gotta make for dinner? What time is it? Do I have to get the kids? What was that noise? And if I'm meandering and I'm unclear, then they're not going to get it. And it's not their fault. That would be my fault, right? For not making it as clear as possible.
That's it, right? These are nuances, but it's all these nuances that add up.
Yeah.
And so by having an SOP around your IP, you can then build out from there so much more effectively. And you can put it in your marketing, on your sales page. And so people are going to be attracted to your approach to automations, and understand what you do and what you offer in comparison to a competitor, right? Who may walk through that more. And then it's like, well, the expert who explains how you work with them, well, they do seem more appealing than the one who's just like, trust me.
Right.
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 So, so then they're more likely to put that discovery call with you. And then discovery call, you kind of walk through it. And then because you have a structure, it means that you waste less time in that half an hour, 45 minutes that you've got with them.
Yeah.
And you walk through it, it's clear, and you spend more time on any doubts they have, which you can address.
Yeah.
Any questions around pricing. Dates when you can start the things that are going to move the needle and speed up the conversion, if it makes sense, of course, to work together. And equally, if it doesn't make sense to work together, if they don't agree with your methodology, save the headache.
Yeah, great.
On both parts.
Right. We're not halfway into it saying you're doing crappy work and me saying like,
but this is how it works.
This is how it works.
So you've managed those expectations up front. So you're saving time in all those stages of the process, from like, what content do I put on my marketing to them arriving on your sales page and being confident to want to book a call with you to the call time. Like it's all these small gains, they add up, and, it's hard to sort of make it super tangible. I mean, I do hear clients are like, I can convert more quickly. My service appears more premium because I can explain my unique perspective and methodology. Right. So they're able to charge a higher fee. They're able to attract more lucrative opportunities in a way that, giving workshops or speaking because they have a methodology. You're going to be chosen for having that over someone who doesn't, right? Yeah. So there's all these nuances.
Yeah. I mean, like this has been a big week of self-reflection for me. And as you were talking, I was thinking about my approach to discovery calls. And it's never like, okay, the fact that you filled out this form makes me fully understand your problem. It's always like, so tell me about your problem. Right. And then they go through it and I'm like, okay, here are a few ways I think I can help you. And like, I probably lose half the people right there. You think you can help me. I want somebody who knows they'll help me. Right. And so this has been hugely helpful already. But I do want to wrap up with, if a lot of our listeners are thinking, as I'm thinking right now, that we need a signature framework. I obviously don't want you to give away your secret sauce, but let's get this out of the way. Does it need to be an acronym?
I love that. The amount of times, also working with clients, the amount of time they spend on ChatGPT being like, how do you create an acronym for this system? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I think, it's a classic clear over clever.
Yeah.
Simple over complex.
Mm-hmm.
Easier said than done, and definitely the difference between a novice and an expert.
Yeah.
I think for me, to give a more tangible example, sometimes there are just like the right words for communicating the thing that, that sort of key action at that time. And if you place it for another word, just so it can fit into an acronym, it dilutes it.
Yeah.
And look, if it works, great. And of course, see if it can work, but not at the expense of, complexity.
Yeah.
And like, something clever. Like it just...
Like if you're trying to like back in some words to an acronym you want like that, I was yesterday while Chris Donnelly was talking. I was like, he was talking about a little bit frameworks, acronyms, and I'm like, how do I make this an acronym? And I just couldn't get there. Like, do, document, automate, delegate, remove. There's no way to make that a word. Yeah. And that is the clearest way to communicate what I help people do.
So another thing is people who use acronyms depend on the verbal element, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing, right? If you bring in that visual element and create this diagram and create a signature visual around it, you're like leaning on that to tap into the memory. Yeah. And bringing in icons, or arrows. Yeah. And so you can communicate that in other forms and still get the integrity of the word that really resonate and touches the person, that as they're actioning, remembering these key concepts, they can really access it and apply it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Justin's sponsor wheel again, and I'm like, how unclear would it be if he tried to back an acronym into that?
Ludicrous.
Pitch, negotiate, concept, feedback, produce. Like, what word would you need to find for that, right? But like, you see the sponsor wheel and you know the process.
That's the thing. I mean, I'm sure you know it off by heart now, right?
Yeah, right.
But when you first encounter it, you don't need to know all 8 words. Yeah. You just get like, you use this system and you keep using it like a flywheel. Right. And you'll land consistent, well-paying sponsorships. Yes. And that's all you need to know to begin with, right? And then you're like, okay, I really need to learn how to pitch. And so you double click on that and you sort of internalize those learnings, right? And then you sort of go on to the next step and internalize those learnings. And so you develop your own associations and hooks with it. But what's so great is like, the visual of Justin's sponsorship wheel is beautiful. It's compelling. You want to remember it. Yeah. You want to create visual hooks around it. And that's also why it's so powerful. Right.
Yeah. And within each, inside pitch, he does have the rope method, right? So, and within follow-up or creating a PCR, he has the Pinot follow-up, so it's like your signature framework leads the way for creating bigger systems or the opportunity for acronyms if you really want them inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's not just like take it away. Right. But you just use them at the appropriate place. All I would say is like, the rope, the Pinot acronym, like they're tertiary level frameworks. Right. And they're like, I mean, you can still invest in making them beautiful, it depends sort of, on your sort of budget really. So it is an investment of time and to really kind of, mark it up and make it in a compelling visual. But you can also do like a really good version of that without breaking the bank, right? And so I think that's the thing. You can kind of zoom in and zoom out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so doesn't need to be an acronym. What is the first thing someone should think about when creating their signature framework?
So common misconception, flawed approach is a really common thing that I hear is, I've written over 100 newsletters. I've got 50 blog posts. I've got 25 YouTube videos. Yeah. There's a framework in there, right? Like people see it like very content focused, like this kind of marketing hat because those are the examples that they see, so they don't know any better.
Right.
But I think the thing that they miss is thinking, what is the outcome that I want to enable people to get through my framework?
Right.
And then when you ask that question, what's the A, what's the B? You get really clear and you get really focused.
Yeah.
Like I want people to have an efficient automation setup so they have more time back for their life and business.
Right.
For example, in your world.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so what do they need to achieve that? You kind of design backwards from that.
Right.
And it's then much clearer, like what to keep in your framework and what to keep out.
Right.
And then, you have a sort of an anchor. Whereas if you have so many ideas, there's no anchor, like what are you shooting for? And then that's where people like get lost and they just don't know what's left, what's right, what's up or down. And then and you just spin your wheels. It's difficult to imagine kind of what a framework could possibly be. How could I possibly have a framework? Because it's just like everything is everywhere. There's no definition.
Yeah. It's almost like looking at just like a plot of land and going like, yeah, I could build a house. I could build a house anywhere. But like if you see the basement somewhere, the structure somewhere.
Yeah.
Right,
where does the rise sun?
Right. Yeah. This is where I can build this is where I will build my house. And this is how I can build my house.
Right. And then you get clearer, like, do I want to build it in the middle of the plot?
Right.
Or is there like a stream over there and I don't want to like do it too close to the stream? Or I want to have a big lawn area so my kids can play there. Right. I want to wake up with the sun rising and I want to see it in this way versus that way. You start to bring definition. Right. And then when you start to do that, there's only so many places you can actually start building the house.
Yes. Right.
So, similarly, but I think perhaps more simply, it's just like, what does this framework enable for the user?
Right.
And when you get really clear about that, and I recommend writing it down, like the sort of outcome, it's so much easier to design backwards to enable it.
Yeah. And I think you probably want to be, because I think I'm certainly inclined to say, well, I'm saving them time. You want to be more specific, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine that the basis for Justin's signature framework is something like, I want to make sure anybody who uses this gets consistent brand deals. There's consistent, better paying brand deals, something like that.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, super clear to achieve that, do these 8 steps.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Well, Charlotte, this has been awesome. We've just scratched the surface on signature framework. So if you want to learn more, reach out to Charlotte. Where can people find you?
Thanks so much. Yeah, my website is signatureframework.co.
Yes.
And I'm actually just in the process of launching a new signature framework swipe file, yes. Which you're welcome to grab. I'll put the link in the show notes. Yeah. Like yourself, like many people ask me, so how do I start? Yeah. And often what people find helpful is seeing examples of other signature frameworks, so they can see kind of what it looks like for a coach using it or a consultant using it. And I'm also going to categorize them by industry as well, so you get to see different examples. And I'll include like a Loom video to kind of walk through what's working well about the framework and what could be improved, so you get a bit of a sense of sort of how to think about it and use it in your business.
I love that, because I don't know, I'll let Charlotte tell her own secrets, but she has worked with many cool people and have developed many cool signature frameworks. So really, really cool to see your work in action in the wild and books I've read and things I've consumed.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure. Very grateful to have worked with some experts, with different sizes of followings. I really, really like working with the rising stars as well as the more well-known stars.
Yeah,
and I think it's ultimately people who really care, actually, really, really care and really want to enable impacts and results for their people, and who have lived that journey, have lived that pain, that frustration, or followed their curiosity and maybe a bit of both. And found a new way of doing something better. Yeah. And they just really care, want to share people share it with others to save them the time and the heartache that they went through. It's really, I'm very grateful to work with them.
Awesome. I love that. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us today here at Kit Studios. Thank you again to Kit and Nathan. I'll link to Kit in the show notes as well. Rich show notes today.
Yeah, nice.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks. Awesome, Joe.
Yes. And thank you for listening or watching. If you're watching this to see the beautiful studio, I really appreciate it. And until next time, I hope you find some space in your week.